Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast today is brought to you by our Patreon page. Visit patreon.com/Gear Network. That's Patreon, patreon.com/GERE Network. And look over the memberships to subscribe. For as little as $1 a month, you could receive this podcast and every other podcast from January 1st of 2020 onward, completely commercial-free, as well as advanced releases of every podcast. If you sign up for as little as $3.50 or more, you not only get that tier, but you also get exclusive podcasts, exclusive content, including the brand new GNE podcast, Gear Network exclusive podcast. Again, patreon.com/Gear Network, completely commercial-free and exclusive content. Do it right now for as little as $1 a month.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network. You're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast on the Gear Radio Network.
And with that, we welcome you to Better Live Than Dead, the podcast powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is episode 171.
171 people, and my God, Ryan, I feel like the popular kid in school today. This is my third podcast of the day across two different networks. I'm definitely getting that radio voice, some work today.
Hell yeah, that's what I like to hear. Well, hey, it's a good Sunday afternoon here. It's a little overcast outside, but it's never a bad time to sit down and do a podcast, especially when we're getting to catch up. It's been a tough probably 4, 5, 6 weeks now. We're still all holed up in our homes. We've labeled this podcast "Return to Normalcy" with a question mark because things aren't really going back to normal. We're still kind of doing the same thing. But before we get too far into this, I want to let people know you can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, Apple Podcasts, Bullhorn, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, the Radio.com app, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. I am Ryan Wolfe. Joining me on the IndyCar Media Hotline, John Cimino at IamJCMoney. I am at Wolfe BLTD on Twitter. John, how you been holding up these past few weeks since the last time we chatted?
Well, I will tell you, man. It's goes without saying. You hear this everywhere. We are in some interesting times, very interesting times, and there are positives out of this, and that's the way I try to look at what we're facing right now. I mean, the caveat to being at home all day, every day, nonstop, is, the projects that I could do around the house that they can get done now. I'm working from home exclusively. I have just an insane amount of time with my children now, living that, single dad co-parenting life. I don't have any breaks with the kids in terms of, babysitter or school or anything like that. And while part of me still wishes that they had their school hours, because teachers I'll tell you what, teachers better get a hefty pay raise when things get back to normal, because they're definitely, it's hard to be, the guy that does his full time, has to work his full-time job, but also has to dub over as a homeschool teacher for his kids, and then on top of that, find things for them to do, and also run a podcasting network. So it's been tough in some ways, but it's been very honestly fun and rewarding in others. How about you? How you doing?
Hanging in there. I mean, I've still been going to work. I've been deemed essential because of the services my work provides. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing that. I finally got healthy. I had like a 4-week sinus infection, which took some antibiotics to take care of. But I've got a couple fun stories for you, if you don't mind me sharing.
Go for it.
With not.
Are these the three big things?
Oh no, this is just the rundown, my man. We don't even have 3 big things yet.
All right, very good.
Excuse me. So first off, Instacart. I finally broke and decided to try Instacart out, and the first experience with Instacart left a very poor taste in my mouth. I've since had successful Instacart experiences, but the first one went poorly, to say the least.
What happened to make it go so poorly? I'm very curious.
I placed my order, and they said that they would show up with it that evening, which I was great with. Awesome. I get some stuff I need, so we can keep rolling on forward here. And then I get a text saying that my stuff has been delivered at 7:19 p.m. Mind you, it never showed up. So $70 some of groceries never showed up to my house. Now, thankfully, Instacart was so gracious to not only give me a credit of $10 for my next purchase, but they also credited me back all the money for the items that I did not receive, which would have been all of them. But what one hell of a way to start a relationship with a new company. They say, we're bringing in your stuff, and then it never shows up, despite the fact that they say it showed up. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. I've had nothing but positive experiences with Instacart, so that's kind of a first for me to hear there. But I don't use Instacart much at all anymore because of the way that they jack up the prices of everything. It's bad enough when you go to Wegmans, you can get like 5 items at Wegmans and somehow spend $70 on all that stuff. Well, that's, $80 or $90 or $85 doing it Instacart, and that's not including the delivery fee. So they mark things up there. I much prefer Walmart grocery pickup, but that since the whole quarantine state that we're in has been very, very weird. Like, I can never find a time when I go to look on there, and then when I do get a time, they don't have half the shit that I need. And then the last time that I went and did grocery pickup, I ended up waiting with 2 hungry kids after school, or after work rather, 2 hungry kids in my car for an hour and 15 minutes for them to deliver put my groceries in my trunk.
Wow.
And that was when I had it set to pick up from the Webster Walmart at, in the between 5 and 6 o'clock. And I was there until 7 something.
Oh my goodness.
And so I was furious. So now I've been just going once every week and a half or so to the grocery store, get what I need, and stay home.
Now, another story for you, John. It's been a fun week. Wednesday, I decide, my coworker tells me, hey, if you want to go get some cheap gas, if you got to fill up, because like I said, I'm still driving 35, 40 minutes a day to and from work Monday through Friday, so I still got to fill my car up. But gas in Batavia is $2.35-ish. Gas out in Henrietta was $1.69. So
wow.
I decided I'll go to BJ. I'll go to BJ's and get cheap gas. So I'm sitting there in line waiting, talking to my mom. My car is in park. There's a car in front of me. Apparently she didn't like to wait, and she backed directly up into me and messed my bumper up, I guess.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Dead serious. I was going 0 miles an hour. And
Jesus
now my whole bumper
Christ.
has to be replaced. I'll send you pictures after the podcast.
Okay.
To make it even better, John, salt in the wound, if you will. The car's getting fixed on Monday. No big deal. Nothing's broken except the bumper's got a giant dent in it. I'm driving home Friday from work. I get to about Bergen on the expressway and hear a bang on my windshield, and then my windshield's cracked.
Good God almighty.
Nothing I can do but laugh at that point.
I mean, we've all had those weeks where it's just a trifecta shitstorm, and it sucks when it happens. But I would say there's a silver lining. The silver lining is you're okay. You're getting your shit taken care of.
The silver lining is that I don't have to pay for the bumper because her insurance company took 100% responsibility. And
as they should have.
The windshield, I have no deductible on glass. They just fix it for me. So,
okay, good.
It's not like it's the end of the world. It's a minor inconvenience, but if nothing else, it put a smile on my face and just made me kind of laugh because, with everything happening in the world right now, things like this become an inconvenience. But at this point, you just roll with the punches. It is
absolutely.
What it is.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to speak to you, and I've been, as you all know, I've been toying around and have recently dipped into video casting.
Yep.
In addition to the podcast, and I found that has been fun, not necessarily from the aspect of realizing that my webcam on my laptop is grainy as shit, and I need to buy a new one. But it's been nice to see the people that I've been talking to
It's just nice to see people, man. Like I don't necessarily like going to work every day because I know how much of a risk it puts me at, because it's not the people who you see every day. It's who those people see and who those people see and who those people see that puts you ultimately at risk. So I don't mind seeing my coworkers at all, but I'm like the coronavirus ringleader at work, where if someone starts to cough, I'm like, you got to do X, Y, and Z. Watch for this, watch for that, because no one else seems to care.
I think that's a lot of that has to do with Mrs. Wolfe over there too. Being on the front line. Which, by the way, how the hell is she doing?
She's incredibly stressed out, but she's holding together as best as she can. It's really a day by day type of thing with her.
All right, good. Well, give her my love and give her, in fact, give her the love of all the listeners too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
She's the real, and that's awesome to hear that despite being stressed, she's still, doing her thing and being out there and being the hero that we need.
At a time like this, that's all you can do, really. Because some days she'll go to work and it'll be perfectly fine, totally calm. Next day she'll go to work and it's a nightmare. It's a complete 180. So, two things I want to point out as well that have nothing to do with me or you, John. Before we jump over to the three big things, first off, good guy Jack Eichel, Buffalo Sabres forward, donates 5,000 protective masks to area hospitals purchased from Bauer Hockey. Now, Bauer Hockey has swapped from making hockey equipment to making protective masks, which is pretty cool. And it's nice to see that Jack Eichel is doing his part to help out, because we've seen things in Buffalo not go so well recently with the Pagulas firing all of their workers and not paying people and being greedy millionaires, or greedy billionaires. I don't know how much they're worth, but greedy, whatever, not nice people. It's nice to at least see a guy like Jack Eichel step up to the plate and help out as much as he possibly can. And not Jack Eichel's obviously not the only one doing it, but because it is Buffalo and it is stuff that we are always looking for.
We not only talk sports, in general, but the BLTD brand podcasts are very Buffalo friendly, Buffalo specific. Trust the podcast, the Sabercast. So we have our finger on the pulse of what happens in Buffalo sports. So yeah, of course we're going to talk about it, man.
Now, not related to Buffalo sports, but this goes down as the dumbest fucking thing we've heard all month, as it's so nicely coined in the podcast.
I do like that, and you bolded it too. It's very nice.
Yeah, that's my headline of this is the part of the podcast. Red Bull their current advisor to the Red Bull F1 teams, as well as the head of Red Bull's driver development program, Helmut Marko, great name, Helmut Marko, suggested to his drivers that they should become infected with the coronavirus to, quote, be prepared whenever the action starts. He did go on to say, quote, let's put it this way, it has not been well received. But again, John, as I said, the dumbest fucking thing we've heard all month.
Did he say this with a straight face, or was he saying it just kind of like
completely straight face? He felt that it may have put the drivers at an advantage because if they get it and because they're young and their immune systems are great, whatever, blah, 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 that maybe they'll be able to overcome it and then be better off for it.
That is by far the most ridiculously stupid thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here bringing politics into it, but I've watched every day the last 3.5 years of this freaking presidency, and that's definitely, there's some stupid shit that motherfucker's been saying. Oh yeah. But this Helmut Marko guy, that's pretty freaking out there.
I mean, let's be honest. Come on now.
Right.
Now, our three big things brought to you by FortunePhoto.com. We start off in the National Football League. The big news story lately, John, since the last time we jumped on the podcast, the Carolina Panthers finally cut ties with quarterback Cam Newton after failing to trade him to both the Chargers and Bears, which was reported. Now, Carolina only takes on $2 million in dead cap money. Newton, 30 years old, underwent Lisfranc surgery in December. He did pass a physical before being released, which should help him find a new job. He ends his Panthers career with a 68-55-1 record in 125 games. Now, in 2011, Newton was the first overall pick. And in that draft class, hear how he ranks up against his fellow 2011 draftees. He has 29,041 passing yards. That ranks second in the draft. 182 touchdowns, also second in the draft. 108 interceptions. He had he has, I should say, 4,806 rushing yards, third in the draft class, and 58 rushing touchdowns, second in the draft class, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is 58 rushing touchdowns are an NFL record for quarterbacks. But John, we've seen the toll that the physical game has taken on Cam Newton, and we saw, I mean, granted, we don't know how hurt he was this last season, but I mean, obviously he was hurt enough to have to get surgery and be out for an extended period of time, but we don't know how hurt he was going into the season. And we saw that if he doesn't have his legs and his feet under him, he's a completely different player. So do you think Newton can get back to that style of play he's had before? Or do you think either the game has passed him by or he's going to need to make big adjustments in his game to continue his career?
Well, I think as he gets older, he's going to need to make those big adjustments if indeed his heart is set on playing and continuously playing for, however many more years he wants to play. I don't see Cam Newton making it to Tom Brady's age, in terms of playing career. I think he will. I think with enough adjustment, he could last another 3 to 5 years as a quarterback. But if he's gonna keep relying on the run game, which will deteriorate over time as he ages, especially all things considering coming off the heavy amount of injuries that he has had, particularly with his foot and with his legs. If he does not make the change to being more of a pocket quarterback and working on his accuracy and his touch and all that stuff, then the game will have absolutely passed him by. Now, that said, I do think that there is enough in the tank for him right now to at least make a run at, being a starting quarterback again. I mean, remember, it was only 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that he was the NFL MVP. He's not that far removed from being the top guy in the NFL, at least at one point in time. Oh, the question that I or really any team should have is, where's his head at? You've known that when things don't go Cam's way, he gets kind of downtrodden and kind of has like a nasty temperament to him or whatever. Our team's going to want that, especially teams like the Los Angeles Chargers, whom they don't have Phillip Rivers anymore. Yeah, they have Tyrod Taylor, but Cam Newton's better than Tyrod Taylor. Would Coach Rivera in Washington want to bring him in and renew, rekindle what they had in Carolina there in Washington? Try that out. Would the hoodie give him a shot in New England? I don't know. It really would all depend on where Cam's head is at. Cam has, in my opinion, is his own worst enemy. So the real answer to that question, Ryan, lies within Cam Newton himself.
I don't disagree with you on that one. I think his best fit is probably in New England, which we'll talk about the Patriots here in just a few minutes as we move on down the list here. But I agree with you. Cam Newton is probably his own. We know he's his own worst enemy because, as you mentioned, he can be very hard on himself. But I think if he gets the right team and the right coaching staff and he still has some gas left in the tank, they definitely can take advantage of that. And Cam Newton can take advantage of it, and whomever he plays for can take advantage of that as well. And I don't necessarily think that Cam Newton's the game has passed him by, but I certainly think that he needs to protect his body more than he has, in the past. And he still might be able to be an effective, an above average quarterback in the National Football League.
Well, I think he's better than backup for sure, and he's probably better than some starters that are out there right now. So I think he'll have a shot. But again, it's does he, where's his heart in all of this?
Absolutely.
He seems to be right now, after being cut, seems to be projecting that he's, this is a mistake. Y'all made a mistake on me, blah, 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 whatever. But then, push comes to shove. What are you going to do?
Absolutely. The Cincinnati Bengals, they cut cornerback Dre Kirkpatrick. Cincinnati moves forward with a $2.8 million dead cap hit. Kirkpatrick played 99 games, 10 interceptions, and 65 pass deflections. He only played 6 games in the 2019 season due to a knee injury. Also, Carolina signs wide receiver Robbie Anderson to a 2-year, $20 million deal. Anderson had
that one hurts.
receptions, 779 yards and 5 touchdowns in 16 games in 2019. John, to make up for the loss of Robbie Anderson, the New York Jets signed wide receiver Brashad Perriman to a 1-year, $8 million deal. Career highs in targets last year with 69. Very nice. Receptions in 36, yards 645, and touchdowns with 6. John, how do you feel about the signing of wide receiver Brashad Perriman by your New York Jets?
I mean, that's great. It's great and all, and it's going to be another, kind of quick target for Darnold to hit. I'm more concerned about the Jets and whether or not they're going to bolster that offensive line. They've really done nothing for that in terms of getting Darnold some protection. And maybe they might look to do that in the draft or whatever. But I don't really know what they're doing in terms of getting the weapons around Darnold that he might need to contend in a very in a more wide open AFC East than it arguably has been in the past 20 years. So Brashad Perriman, I feel, is a good temporary solution, but I mean, to pay him 1 year, $8 million, obviously it turns out that Robbie Anderson was, to pay, they didn't want to pay Robbie Anderson the $12 million per year he was asking for, he was seeking. And now as a result, Carolina is now paying him essentially $10 million a season, which is $2 million more than what Perriman got for a 1 year deal. And, the cost of that also is the connection that Darnold and Anderson had too. Now he's got to try and establish that with somebody new with Brashad Perriman. I was a fan of Robbie Anderson, and I'm still a fan of Robbie Anderson, so I'm upset about losing him. But that being said, Perriman's a decent enough replacement, but I don't think that the Jets have done enough on top of that.
Moving over to Jacksonville now, they signed tight end Tyler Eifert. Now, he played 16 games for the first time in his career in 2019. Very injury prone, as we know. When healthy, though, he is one of the best tight ends in the game. 2019, he had 43 receptions for 436 yards and 3 touchdowns. Could be a big signing for Jacksonville and for Gardner Minshew. But again, he has to stay healthy. And speaking of staying healthy, Green Bay signs wide receiver Devin Funchess to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Funchess in 2019 played 1 game with the Indianapolis Colts after suffering a broken collarbone. He has shown to be very talented when healthy. I can't remember which football show it was on, but they would highlight Devin Funchess and then also highlight the fact that he's very susceptible to dropping the ball, which is obviously not good at a position when catching the ball is your job. But again, going and playing with Aaron Rodgers, not a bad idea. Cornerback Ronald Darby signs a 1-year, $4 million deal with Washington, arguably the best cornerback in Philadelphia during his time, but he has missed the last 28 of the last 48 games due to injury. Cleveland continues their free agent barrage. They signed defensive end Adrian Claiborne to a 2-year, $6 million deal. He had 4 sacks in 15 games in 2019. Now, John, beginning with the 2020 season, if the 2020 season happens, the National Football League playoff field will expand to 7 teams per conference. This will add an extra team and push the number 1 seed to a first-round bye. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm indifferent on it. I don't hate the idea, but in the same, if you were to look at it from a perspective of, let's say this situation was presented last season, the 2 extra teams that would have likely got into the playoffs would have been the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers, both whom have had no business being anywhere near the playoffs the way that they played last year. But then I put it back. I put it into a perspective, and I'll put my fanboy hat on for this. A few years ago, the Jets were staring a playoff berth in the face, and I think they finished either 9-7 or 10-6, losing to Buffalo in the final game of the season, which was a meaningless game for Buffalo that day. But the Jets could have made the playoffs had they won the game. I think that under that circumstance, the Jets still would have made the playoffs that year. Given this format. Now, Is it a good thing? I don't know. I have to really watch it, play out to begin with, because you're looking at now 3 games on Saturday and Sunday for wild card weekend. And then the next week you do it again, 3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, which great for the TV, the TV networks that are going to be, going on there. I mentioned this on Listen In the other day, that ABC or ESPN is looking to get Monday Night Football back on ABC specifically so they can get back into the Super Bowl rotation. And this actually would help them because ABC and ESPN have been simulcasting wildcard games for the past couple of years. This will give them extra, at the very least, 2 weeks extra of simulcasting more than one game, perhaps. So, and at the end of the day, John, from that perspective, it's good.
You mentioned the TV, and I just wanted to jump in there. I'm sorry. This move, I think, is all about money. The end of the day.
Absolutely, it absolutely is.
They want to get one more playoff team to add those games. You give another advantage to the 1 seed because now they're the only team there's only going to be 2 teams that get a bye that get to rest up before their playoff matchup. But also, again, money. It's all about there's TV deals coming up. We've got a 17 game season potentially on the docket as well coming up, which we'll talk about in just a second. I honestly think that, at the end of the day, it's going to be these deals that are going to come through. The TV deals are going to be astronomical, and it's all going to be, because of not only is football, we're getting more football, but it feels like football just continually becomes more and more popular because ratings, because money, because when you have people watching, you can charge more for the ads, and you make more money off the ads and X, Y, and Z, and blah 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 blah, and then all the big wigs get super rich, and then football players don't see any of it. I just kind of went off on a rant there, but a lot of money coming in.
I mean, and this will add to it. It's true. It's very true. There is not one point that you made there that was invalid. I will offer this though, for perspective again, looking at last year, if these, this playoff situation happened last year, the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs would have played on Wild Card Weekend, likely against the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, it's so. You look at it from that perspective. Again, I'd have to see how this season plays out in order to determine whether or not it's a good thing to have a borderline crappy team make the playoffs on a chance. So,
we'll have to see.
I'll be curious.
We'll have to see how it plays out in a few years. But I can't imagine, like, say for instance, I don't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers last year made the playoffs. There was no way in hell I could see them making a run last season. It's going to take time. Will there be upsets? Absolutely. But that's what the playoffs are for. It's a 1-game playoff every single time you take the field. That's the excitement behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I don't disagree there.
Speaking of the playoffs and an expanded season, John, a 17-game season quite possibly could cost New Orleans a 2024 Super Bowl. Now, if the schedule adds an extra week, the Super Bowl would likely be pushed back to February 11th, which is the week of Mardi Gras, which obviously takes precedence. Doesn't matter if it's a Super Bowl or not. So the 2024 season, if the 17-game season is approved coming up here soon, the season either might be shuffled around where we get football a week or two earlier, or the Super Bowl might move. Either way, something to keep an eye on. Now, the last thing, John, I wanted to ask you about with football on the mind, the New England Patriots, the Athletic's Jeff Howe reports, quote, barring unforeseen circumstances, quarterback Jared Stidham appears to, quote, have the inside track on the Patriots starting quarterback job. Stidham, a 2019 fourth-round pick out of Auburn. NFL.com rated Stidham a 6.10 draft prospect heading into the draft, quote, a good backup who could become a starter. And they also went on to say, quote, intelligent with ability to decipher defenses, adequate size and arm strength, sound footwork and mechanics from the pocket. In 2019, he had 3 appearances, 2 for 4, passing for 14 yards and 1 interception, which was a pick 6 in the Jets and Patriots game, one of the Jets Patriots games. John, what are your thoughts on the Patriots if they decide to go all in with Jared Stidham at quarterback?
Well, I think it's a mistake for Dolphins fans, Bills fans, and Jets fans to all think that New England's just going to mail it in. next season, and then it's, a complete and total shutdown and rebuild. You got to look at it like this. Bill Belichick is a mastermind as a head coach, particularly with the defense. He had a historic defense last season up until they weren't historic anymore, until they were figured out. I think a lot of the defense's issue was the fact that there was really nobody with Brady on offense to help maintain, to help keep the points on the board or whatever, and the defense got tired because they were on the field so much. That said, I think that that's really what's going to be the big thing for them this year. I think offensively, they're probably going to struggle with Jarrett Stidham in there, and that's going to be Josh McDaniels' job to calm him down and keep him focused and work with what's going to be built around him offensively. And I wouldn't be surprised if this particular Patriots team that takes the field in 2020, God willing, if we do have a football season, which I feel we should, but if Jarrett Stidham, if this takes the field, the Patriots take the field this year with a more defensive-minded approach, similar to the Ravens teams that have won Super Bowls in the past, that wouldn't surprise me. I think that this is going to be a season where the Patriots look a little more human than they have over the past 20 seasons. And so I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about Jarrett Stidham besides the fact that he threw a pick six to Jamal Adams and was benched after that happened when the Patriots had a commanding lead. So I think it's, again, this goes to the AFC East being more wide open than it ever has been because there's so much uncertainty, particularly on the offensive side of the ball with the New England Patriots.
I don't disagree. It'll be fun to watch because a lot of people have already dubbed the Buffalo Bills the favorites in the AFC East, but then you have to remember that it doesn't matter with or without Tom Brady. The Patriots have won it for eons and eons. So at this point, while you may think that the Bills or the Jets or the Dolphins are the favorite in the East, don't, like you said, don't discount the New England Patriots until
right. And I feel that of the teams, of the other three teams, the Buffalo Bills are the ones that are in position to, run the hardest at the division this year. I feel. I don't know that Miami. I think Miami's putting a lot of stock in the draft and what they could do to try to get their quarterback of the future there, whether it's Tua Tagovailoa or however his last name is pronounced.
Tagovailoa.
Yes, or whether it's what's his face, Justin Herbert. That's it. I think the Bills are much more solid foundation now that they are, regardless of Terry Pagula turning out to be a real shithead lately. I think that the Bills could make a serious run for the division and very much win it. But again, I wouldn't sleep on New England. I wouldn't give the Buffalo Bills, 2 over the Jets, 2 over the Dolphins, and 2 over New England. You know what I mean? Right away. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to see.
Sorry, I'm messing around with my microphone here really quick because I've seen that things are detached. So we're all better now. Now we're going to run through baseball really quick on our second of the third 3 big things this week. First off, Mets pitcher Noah Syndergaard expected to be the Mets, number 2 star to win baseball begins, whatever you want to say. This year, he successfully underwent Tommy John surgery after a torn UCL in his right elbow was confirmed. 2019, he went 10-8 with a 4.28 ERA in 32 starts. And the Boston Red Sox confirmed pitcher Chris Sale has successfully undergone Tommy John surgery. Sale expected to be sidelined for 14 to 15 months. This season will mark the first year of his 5-year, $145 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. Also, minor league baseball news. Major League Baseball announced on March 31st that they will be paying Major League players through, quote, May 31st or the beginning of the minor league season, whichever occurs first, good on them. Now, John, moving over to basketball real quick as well. ESPN bumps up the release of it's not quote, it's a title. ESPN bumps up the release of The Last Dance to April 19th. Now, this is a 10-part series.
So can't wait to watch that.
take an in-depth look at the Chicago Bulls dynasty through the lens of the final championship season in 1997-98. How excited, John, are you to sit down and take all of this in?
I am ready for all 10 parts at once. I am so looking forward to this because it's such a flashback, because I lived that. That was my, that Bulls dynasty, was the beginning of my teenage years. And then it finished up in the later portion of my teenage years. And, there was a lot of good memories associated with watching the NBA and NBC and those Bulls teams doing the thing, 72-10, don't mean a thing without the ring, that whole slogan. I mean, just to see that and looking at the in-depth look at the Chicago Bulls dynasty, I mean, there's going to be videos that we were never made to see before, and entirely different perspectives. It's just going to be a tremendous watch, and I can't wait until it comes out.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they said they talked to some over 100 people about it.
Oh,
so
I'm sure they have. It's going to be incredible. That Bulls dynasty arguably changed the game. There have always been dynasties. There's always been, with basketball, different eras, different dynasties and whatever. You had the Boston Celtics in the 50s and 60s and, that dynasty run. And then you kind of get into the 70s with the basketball, with the NBA. And it was kind of like, with all due respect to the athletes that played there, it was kind of like the Coke show, games were not favorable people and that were playing, and there were known druggies and this, and games were on really late at night on syndication, and not, it wasn't until Magic and Larry Bird got into the league to kind of ended up helping save the league and kind of ushering in that era. Then Jordan took over, and that was as TV deals and things were starting to expand and technology was growing even more on that front. And Jordan was the face front of the NBA and the Bulls dynasty. Everybody freaking knew who they were, so it's going to be an awesome flashback to just sit and watch and take all that in and kind of reminisce, hearing John Tesh's NBA and NBC theme. I hope that they play that a few times as well.
I told my wife about it and she didn't seem very excited, but I'm very excited about it. And I'll definitely make sure to take it in as I can, because I love stuff like this. And this, I think, might be ESPN's greatest work, and we haven't even seen it yet.
Right. Exactly.
NBA class. Well, I shouldn't say NBA. I should say Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2020 has been announced. The late Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, WNBA champion and 10-time All-Star Tamika Catchings, former Houston Rockets coach Rudy Tomjanovich, former collegiate coach Eddie Sutton, Baylor women's basketball coach Kim Mulkey, former women's college basketball coach Barbara Stevens, and former FIBA and IOC executive Patrick Baumann, all set to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Many congratulations to them. And John, the last thing we're going to talk about here before we wrap up the podcast, a Woj bomb. The NBA and ESPN are working on televising a horse competition involving several high-profile players, sources tell ESPN. Discussions have been ongoing among the NBA, the NBPA, and ESPN about a competition among several players in isolation, presumably using home gyms that would include them competing shot for shot in the traditional playground game. Details, including a schedule and specific player involvement, are still being finalized, but I am on board for that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I mean, there's nothing else to watch. There really is nothing else to watch. So to get any kind of competition sporting wise on TV, whether it's live or, whatever, I mean, I'll take it. I will take it. I've been going through literally archives of, did you know that YouTube has all a lot of, I don't want to say all, but a lot of vintage NFL games start to finish?
No, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I've watched so much 1980s football. It's so great. And then some of them even have the commercials still on there. So it's awesome seeing the Bob Uecker Miller Lite commercial from back in the day. And things like that. So, but something new and something, in high definition.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent some time watching iRacing with NASCAR, which has actually gotten picked up because of the response from fans. So we're in a weird time, but it's nice to see the creativity come out and see people find new and innovative ways to not only fill time, but to have fun and keep life as normal as possible.
Did you happen to catch any of that special of the NBA players playing NBA 2K20 against one another?
I did not.
I didn't either, and I was very curious as to how well that was received, or how I imagine it was what it was, but like, did they actually like shit talk each other like really bad?
I mean, it's
they're like, that would be
that's
great.
That's the one thing about the NASCAR iRacing, which is fun because they do the Fox broadcast on Fox, but then you can go on Twitch or whatever and you can watch the players as they see the race from like their specific Twitch channels, and you can hear the race car drivers talking shit to each other, which is pretty funny.
That's hilarious. I'll have to see if I could YouTube some of that and check that out. I'm all for all the shit talking.
I'm there. I am down for maximum shit talking. Everyone on the podcast network listening should know that.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. With that being said, though, I think it might be a good time to wrap things up. We want to send out, our thoughts to our podcast cohort, Lewis, Mr. Perez. His mother is currently in the hospital fighting the coronavirus. I know his father also is ill as well. Lewis, we believe he also may have had it because he was very sick there for a while. So we send our thoughts to them and anybody out there who's been sick, who's been fighting everything that's going on. It's like I said, it's a very tough time.
It really is. And, breaking down the wall here, Lewis and I have known each other and been friends for 24 years. At this point. So I know his family, they know me. And more recently, his mother, Pam, I bowled with them. Lewis, his wife, Melinda, and his mother, Pam, I took over for his father because his father was, ironically enough, getting a similar shoulder surgery to what I had in 2012. And Pam is just a sweetheart, and she was such a sweetheart to my girls, and we're all pulling for her. And Lewis has been keeping me abreast daily, just about daily with her condition. And, Pam's a fighter, and she's going to pull, and she's going to beat this thing. And so is OG Lewis. That's his father as well, as the same name. He's going to, hopefully everything is on the up and up for him as well. And just, thoughts and well wishes out to the Perez family, and really, and again, to anybody that's impacted by this virus.
Absolutely. We'll be back sometime soon. We've got a lot of free time on our hands, as we talked about last podcast.
Dude, I've done more podcasts in the past week and a half than I think I have in the past 2 months.
We will talk sports sometime very soon. John is at I am the JC Money. I am at Wolfe BLTD. John, I appreciate you joining me today on a podcast.
Of course, anytime. We're quarantined, brother. So we may be in different studios, but between the Uber conference line or the IndyCar Media hotline or the Zoom cast, if want to bring you on the JC Money Show or listen in or whatever, and we do that, we'll definitely convene and stay in touch. And I'm very happy to do the podcast as always, Ryan.
And many thanks to everybody who's taken the time to listen and tune in. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you sometime very soon. And as always, John, we are better live than dead.
You're not.
We'll catch you sometime very soon. Thanks again for tuning in, and stay safe out there, and make sure that you wash your hands.
And stay home. The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.
Welcome, everyone. This is Sleazy.
This is the Fat Man.
And the world-famous R-rated podcast is now on the Gear Network. The Wrestling Show with Sleazy and the Fat Man is classless and raunchy commentary on the wrestling business today. Our multiple hosts, including Sleazy the Fat Man, Chip Willett, and NEW owner Travis Kenning, give a differing take on news, rumors, reviews, and previews of the entirety of the worldwide pro wrestling market.
We do what we want, we say what we want, and we don't give a at all. That's just the way we go.
Check us out on the Gear Network.